Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jim R. Today's episode 158, and we're going to be interviewing TJS. How are you doing this afternoon, sir?
Doing excellent. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to do this. How about you?
Yeah, really excited.
All right, man. Like I was telling you before, let's start with the first question, which is tell me about your childhood.
Yeah, for sure. So, I had a pretty rough upbringing as a child. I was living in an abusive household. My parents got divorced at a pretty early age, and I didn't really understand what the chaos was all about.
What kind of abuse?
Lots of physical abuse from my father. He was basically a dry drunk and a very angry person. And, I would get beat quite a bit, cuffed over the head, spanked, all of the above. And, that vulnerability really transformed into aggression in my later years. I was an only child growing up, and I just didn't have that structure and comfortability of a lot of these families have. My mom was really timid and didn't stick up for anything, and that was just became the normal that I grew up with. And fast forward a couple of years, there was some sexual abuse from a neighbor that happened. And, a lot of guys, it happens quite a bit. And, us guys are so shameful about that kind of stuff. We don't talk about it enough. But I think that really, pushed a lot of the addiction issues. So, the first time I ever experienced alcohol, I was 12 years old. And, it went from 0 to 100. I ended up in the hospital with my stomach pumped, and you would have thought that would have been enough to kind of turn me off from it, but it didn't. That was just the beginning. And
How did you get the alcohol?
it was called a boot. So we go down and find someone outside the liquor store that was, older. And, we actually found it through a friend of a friend. And he actually gave us, it was a 1 liter bottle that was pre-mixed and with pop. And I just didn't have the experience, and I just drank it like it was pop, and that was it. And, I just remember a few things spiraling out of control. And then the next thing I woke up in the hospital, and, that was the first experience. And then after that, I slowed down a little bit, was a little bit more careful, but being a shy kind of individual, that alcohol made me feel like I was unstoppable. It made me feel like I was the center of the party. It took me out of that uncomfortability. And, so that really kind of elevated my drinking. And, when I got into high school, it was, the parties and all that kind of stuff. And then, I got bullied and stuff a little bit in my first couple of years of high school. And that really, like I said, it just got to a point where I was just sick of it. And then I started fighting back. And then, I would be in fights. And then every time I would drink, I would become this aggressor and just go crazy.
Was the abuse, like what you mentioned, the abuse from your neighbor, was that ongoing? Like, was that something you had to battle your childhood, or was it like
no, it happened about 3 or 4 times.
Okay.
Right. And then, my dad finally caught wind of it, and I actually ended up getting beat for that. Like it was my fault. So, really confusing times. I didn't know what was going on. And like I said, the alcohol really would take away a lot of that guilt and shame and confusion, and just kind of numb it out. And having the ability to numb out the pain with something is very dangerous, because you don't have to feel what you essentially need to feel so that you can heal from it, right? And so once I started fighting and fighting back all these bullies and everything, it came to a point where my school was sick of it, and I ended up getting kicked out. And my mom was sick of it, and I ended up getting kicked out. So at 15, I was basically homeless with no education. And, that's when I kind of turned to this organized crime of growing marijuana. And that was kind of what my life became. And
you said you were growing it?
Yeah. At 15, I moved into this house that was a grow house before, and the people that were there asked me if I wanted to keep doing it. And so they taught me how, and that's what I did for 2 years or so, and made some great money and thought I was untouchable. And basically in the small town that I grew up in, I burned every bridge, mostly due to drinking, because I just became out of control. So
What kind of things were you doing when you burned bridges?
Oh, I would just go and just fight people. I would, go rob other crops. I would, just think that I was untouchable, and stealing and just up to no good, basically.
Okay.
And then it got to a point where, there's some people that were kind of after me, I guess. And I said, screw it. And I left town. I lied about my age and I went to Alberta and worked on the oil rigs. And, at 16, 17, working around a bunch of men in a industry that's surrounded with addiction, heavy equipment, dangerous. You're in the wintertime, it's minus, 40, minus 50. In the summertime, it's plus 40. And I missed out on all those teenage years and all the things, the prom, the graduation, the high school parties, the first dates, all that stuff. I was forced to grow from a boy to a man really quick. And, it was tough. I think one of the things that really kept me out of, throwing away big part of my life through drinking and addiction was the gym. So I would go after work and I'd go work out, and that would be my outlet to take out a lot of the aggression, where the other guys would go to the bar and go drinking. And after I'd go meet up with them and I would have a few drinks. But when I drink, it's like 0 to 100. It's not like I can have a couple. It's just like nonstop. So then again, it would be, in these towns, working on these rigs, going to the gym, drinking, and then getting in fights. And that was, how it went all around Alberta. Fast forward to 25, and, on the outside, it looked like I had everything. I had a house that I had bought, my first house. I had all the vehicles. I had an amazing relationship, a great job. I kind of had the drinking under control at that point, so I thought. And then the recession hit, and I had all these big payments and everything that I had, this lifestyle I've created, and then work just instantly stopped. And I had to figure out a way that I was going to still maintain the lifestyle that I had. So I went back to what I thought I knew, and that was crime. And, I started selling drugs and really getting into that lifestyle.
What kind of drugs? Was it anything other than weed?
Oh yeah.
What were you selling?
I was selling coke. I was selling meth. It got.
Where do you find the connects for all that stuff? Like for me, I used to sell weed. I used to get a pound and then distribute it and all that. Yeah. And I got lucky, and a kid in my town had some connection where he used to get a couple pounds and he would sell.
Yeah. Well, so basically, when it came to that point, starting small and then kind of moving up the scale, and being good at what I did, and not getting high on my own supply, I was able to kind of do that. And then it came to the point where I basically got involved with gangs and the gang lifestyle and notorious motorcycle clubs, and that really became the pivotal point. And I was part of something that was a support club for a really big club, and
what do you mean a support club? I thought it was.
So there's like the main clubs, that everybody talks about, and then there's like these support clubs that basically it's run as a structure of the same, and they pick guys from that to move up, right? So I mean, I don't want to get too much into it, but that was kind of my life, and I really got into that pretty hard. And my girlfriend at the time was like, well, you got to choose. It's either you're going to be with me or you're going to go this way with your lifestyle. And, I chose that. So she left, and I was full on into that. And then it went from, selling ounces to selling bricks to selling guns to the whole 9 yards. And everything that comes with it, so doing the things that I was doing, kidnappings, extortion, collections, and right down the line to the point where, I had my house raided by the SWAT team. They came in, and, I was looking at 10 years in jail for a lot of the things. And I had a high priced lawyer that got me off of all these charges, and I was on curfew for a couple of years, but I thought I was untouchable at that point. And, everywhere I went, it was a target. I've been stabbed. I had my throat slashed. I've had my stomach cut open. And life was just spiraling out of control. And I started using the drugs that I was selling because I had no other way to deal with it. And that was how I would numb everything out and the paranoia that came with it. And, you know, it got to a point where I was asleep in my house one morning and bang, 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 bang. I woke up. I thought it was actually the cops banging on my door, but someone did a drive-by and shot 7 high-powered rounds right through my house. And they went through every single wall and out the backside of my house, about a foot from where I was sleeping.
Oh,
And
shit.
that was, you know, a really pivotal point. And, you know, so for a month or so after that, I wouldn't leave the house without a bulletproof vest or one of these.
What was this about, like territories and shit?
Pretty much money. You know, people owed me about $100,000, and I was pushing really hard to collect that money. And
They didn't want to pay.
yeah, I didn't want to pay, so it'd be a lot easier just to kill me, right?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the way that I lived my life. And you know, I transformed kind of a little bit away. I opened up a business and kind of had a side hustle, I guess, and ran things through that. And
What
you
kind of
know,
business?
it was a fitness store, fitness clothing, tanning. You know, and there was investigations. They'd be sending undercover cops. They'd be having customers come in and putting recording devices in my store, and my life was just out of control. It was just like shit you'd see in the movies, and I was just so tired of living that way, and I felt like I had no real escape. And so then again, using more and more drugs, and basically it got to a point where I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to get out of it. It was coming to a point where I was either going to end up dead, in jail, or kill myself. And I one night I was really high and fucked up, and I put a gun in my mouth and I pulled the trigger, and it jammed.
Oh shit.
And you know, that was a huge point where I was like, holy shit, you know, I don't know.
What brought you to that point?
No way out. I didn't feel like I had a way out. I was so fed up. I felt like I couldn't stop using drugs. And
What was your drug of choice?
I wouldn't really say it was my drug of choice. It was just I was using a lot of coke because it was around, and you know, I was repressing bricks, and I'd always have it around. And it just got to the point where I'd be like, I don't want to do this, and then I do it, and I don't want to do it anymore. And I just, you know, I couldn't stop. And then I'm just sitting at home watching the cameras, paranoid, didn't want to leave my house. You know, so after that point, I talked to a couple people, and they just said, "Well, get to a meeting." And you know, I didn't have any other choice. I didn't know what else to do, so I went to my first AA meeting, and it was a men's meeting. There was about 70 guys there, and I walked in there, this big tough gangster, so I thought, and sat down, and every person that shared, I heard my story. You know, all different people, all different walks of life. There's part of me, there's part of me, there's part of me. And I just started bawling my eyes out. I couldn't even control it. It just came over me, and that was it. And you know, when people say AA saved their life, I believe them, because I know that AA saved my life. And I didn't get it. I didn't get it the first time. You know, it took a little while, and but you know, the first meeting that I went to, they say it screws up your drinking or drugging career because that seed gets planted. And you know, I would remember those guys. I still remember some of the faces from that first meeting, and the people that were there that, you know, could love me until I could love myself. Because when I walked in there, I was just broken. I was a broken man. I didn't love myself. I didn't even know who I was. You know, and with the tools of the program, I was able to leave that lifestyle behind. And I moved.
What tools did they provide you, the program? What would you say those were? Like,
Well, I mean, first of all, was admitting that I had a problem, because I didn't even think that I really had a problem. I knew that I was screwed up, and learning to live a life of spirituality, that there's something more out there. I'm not a religious person by any means, but you know, knowing that there's something out there that has my back, also teaching me to live in the moment, you know, one day at a time, not having to worry about what happened yesterday, and not, you know, looking too far down the road. Also, you know, when it says, you know, step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed, being willing to make amends, to be able to forgive myself was something that really um, helped me change, because I was so cloaked in guilt and shame and regret and remorse and all this stuff. And I just didn't know how to let that go. So, you know, with working the steps and having a guide for living, it just really was able to shape me into the person that I am today, you know. And they say, you know, don't just do the steps once. I mean, now I don't do the steps, I live the steps on a daily basis. um so, you know, death, jail, or recovery, those are my three options. This new option had come up of a life of recovery, and that's what I chose. And I moved back to the small town that I was born in, and where everything all started. You know, I moved my business back here and started over, leaving all that criminal enterprise and criminal lifestyle behind. And it was tough, man. It was tough dealing with the stuff sober. It was tough not having all the money that I had. Um, and Here in British Columbia, there's a mental emergency. There's an overdose epidemic that's happening right now, and 7 people a day are dying in BC of
Really?
toxic drug overdose. And you know, I think that number is probably quite a bit higher right now. They can't even keep up with what's going on. And then during COVID, what happened is 4 of my really close friends overdosed and died in 1 week. And that was a point for me that I was like, okay, well, I got to do something. I have to
Would
do something.
would they
Um,
overdose on?
Mostly cocaine, and you know, they were daily users. That it just, there was a bunch of bad dope going around, and there was fentanyl in it, and that was it. And you know, these guys have kids, they have families, they have wives. The thing with addiction, you know, that we don't realize when we're in it is we're, you know, selfishly just thinking it's us that it affects, but we're just the epicenter, and it affects all these people around us. um, you know, these kids have to grow up without parents now, and these wives have to, you know, be the mother and the father. And you know, so it's a really damning thing. So I was able to sell, I had a little tattoo shop and a clothing store. I was actually able to sell it for, you know, a small little profit during COVID. Super blessed. And I took all of that money and I put it into the place that I'm in, renovating it and turning it into a treatment center. And it took me about 6 months to do all the paperwork and the programs and the policies, the procedures, the renovations. And about 5 months ago, I opened, and we're just small. We have 4 or 5 beds, and it's a recovery center for men. And we focus on the 4 pillars of recovery, spirituality, nutrition, and fitness. And these guys come in here for 30, 60, 90 days. We're in the gym 5 days a week. We do boxing, we do nature hikes. It is 12-step based. Um, you know, they have counseling twice a week, and a bunch of stuff. We do indigenous, go with the indigenous culture and community, and do sweat lodges and spirit baths. And it's a pretty amazing thing to watch these guys transform their lives and get their lives back. Because when they come in here, they were just as broken as I was. And you know, it helps keep me sober. It helps me become that living amends for all the things that, you know, I did in my past that I can't ever make up for directly. But you know, through giving back and helping these guys get their lives back and using my lived experience, you know, it's the gifts of sobriety. And it's amazing thing to see these guys get their families back and their kids. And you know, because a lot of times kids beg their parents, you know, why can't you just stop? Please just stop using. Please just stop drinking. And they say, okay, okay, I will, I will. And then, you know, the next day they're right back at it. And,
Yeah.
you know, if our kids can't stop us from using, what can, right? And, you know, so it's been quite the journey the last couple of years. And, you know, I'm also part of a group of a bunch of people from across Canada called Empower to Recover. And what we are doing is, you know, we recover loud, and we're bringing the voice to the government to say, hey, you guys need to start paying for absence-based programs, because I get no government funding. I get no grants, I get no help. And, recovery coaching should be accessible to everybody. The government should be paying for recovery coaches. A lot of people don't know what recovery coaching is, but it's basically a new type of healing that people with lived experience like myself share our experience with people, and we meet them wherever they're at in their journey of wanting to get sober. And it's a whole different life than going in and speaking to a counselor and someone who's gone to school for 4 or 5 years but has no idea what it feels like to relapse, what it feels like to lose a loved one, what it feels like to be addicted and not be able to stop. So we're trying to bring awareness to get funding for these programs. And we have a bunch of cool stuff we're doing. We're donating $5,000 each to 3 nonprofits that are recovery based. We have a program called Pitch Your Recovery Business. So if you're in recovery and you have a business idea, you bring it forward to us, and we're going to pick the top one that we think is going to have the most impact. And we're going to give them a $5,000 startup. We're going to give them some business coaching. We're going to give them a website and a whole marketing package. And so we're doing our first event November 19th in Vancouver, British Columbia. And we're hoping to bring this across Canada and then eventually into the States. And another thing I've done is I've started a sober clothing line called Therapy Threads. And 100% of the proceeds of that go back to treatment centers and help guys get access to treatment.
That's great. That's really great. Doing good things, it sounds like. So how long did it take you to get this start? I mean, when you first started, I mean, what was your plan? How long did you think it was going to take? And how long did it take?
Yeah, when I first started, I learned a lot from failures, from mistakes, and just from keep on pushing through. When I first started, I wanted to go so big. We wanted a big therapeutic community and a big farm, and people come there and live there, and it just became, the government has so much red tape and so many restrictions and so many hoops you got to jump through. I just took a big step back and said, okay, we got to slow down and use what we have. I had a building that I had for my store. And basically we talked to the landlord and signed a longer lease that allowed us to do what we were doing. So basically, I sold my business last August. So it's basically been about a year to do all the paperwork, the planning, the renovations, and to be open. And like I said, we've been open for 5 months now. So
how's it going?
It's going amazing. I mean, it's challenging. I'm the only guy here right now. So I'm here 24/7 with these guys. And it gets exhausting sometimes, right? Because they come in at their rock bottom, and I got to help them rebuild their lives, and it becomes taxing on my own spiritual cup sometimes. But then there's all the wins, and like I said, watching these guys rebuild their lives, save their lives, and knowing that their families know that they have a safe place, that they're here and they're safe for the time that they're here. And some of the things we do, like the other day, we went for an overnight camping trip up the mountain, and we went and hiked one of the highest peaks in the little town that we're at. And we're up there right at sunset, and it was just life-changing. It was a life-changing spiritual experience for myself and these guys.
Sounds like, again, you're doing really good things. So what's your what's your business plan? Are you expecting to grow? What are you trying to do?
Yeah, so the next phase, we're looking to open up a women's house where they can actually bring their small children. So if there's single moms who are, wanting recovery, their kids don't have to go back into the system or into foster care. They can actually recover together and grow together, because we're really about breaking that generational trauma and that generational addiction and breaking that chain. So that's probably coming in the works for early to mid next year. And then we're also working on a second stage house. So, once these guys finish their 90-day program, they have another safe house to transition into where they can actually start to work and have a life. And but it's also a safe environment that's based on recovery and spirituality and routine. And then within our 5-year goal is that therapeutic community, and basically a big farm that is fully self-sustainable and grows its own vegetables and food. And also, there's an element that we're working on that grows hemp. So hemp can be used for building materials, bioplastics, clothing. It'll give these people a purpose and a job. And then we're going to build these little recovery pods that are, 99% built out of hemp material, that have solar panels, rainwater collection, and they can live there, recover there, and they don't have to worry about having their house sold or their landlords kick them out, and they have a safe place that they can grow. Because right now in BC, there's also a housing shortage that's going on. And a lot of people are being kicked out of their house because their landlords are selling it for major profit. And so there's a lot of things right now that's really hard in Canada with the overdose crisis and the housing crisis. COVID and everything really had a big effect on people, and people are hurting right now, and they're sad, and they're numbing out at an exponential rate of using drugs and alcohol, because that's what gives them this escape from the reality that they're in.
Sounds like you're a good businessman also. You're very organized and have a goal and mission. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but selling drugs does give you a schooling in business. And so what I've learned from that, I just kind of transferred over from doing bad to doing good. I didn't graduate high school. I don't have any, substantial education in that aspect, but it all comes down to having goals, setting goals, and not giving up. Failures happen, setbacks happen, but just never give up on that, because anything is possible. Dreams do come true. It's hard work, but it's just a matter of keep going, keep going, keep going. You can have anything you want in this world if you can accept 1,000 no's. Eventually somebody's going to say yes.
That's great. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, there's some big things coming, and it's just really about giving back. My whole model is impact over income. I'm not doing this to make money and drive flashy cars and that whole lifestyle. The time when I was the most unhappy in my life was when I had the most material things. And this fills up my spiritual cup, and it's given me a whole different way of living. And living to give back is my life's purpose. I'm living my life's purpose now. And I mean, when I was in that gang lifestyle and doing all that, I was having a personality crisis, because it wasn't who I was. It wasn't aligned with my core values. And now I'm living my core values every day.
That's good. So getting towards the end here, let me ask you a question. What type of advice would you have for people watching and listening?
The type of advice I'd have for people watching and listening, I mean, for one, there's no shame in asking for help. If you're struggling, myself, I always had a hard time reaching out and asking for help. I thought I was burdening other people. I thought that I was a problem, but in hindsight, when people ask me for help, it actually helps me. So don't be afraid to ask for help, because you're going to get the help that you need, and you're actually going to end up helping somebody else. So there's that. And like I said before, never give up. Have dreams so big that it scares people, and do whatever it takes to accomplish that. There's nothing in this world that people can't accomplish. It all comes down to just believing in yourself, never giving up, and doing whatever it takes.
Yeah, I would love to do that with Addicts Anonymous. I would love to grow, and those are some of the plans I have. Because in America, it's different to open. I don't know how it is in Canada, but with us, it's all about the insurance, getting the insurance to pay for their stay and stuff like that. I hear that end of the business here is terrible, like just absolutely terrible, trying to get money from insurance companies because they don't want to pay. Their whole goal and their whole mission in the US is to not pay out. So they'll do whatever it takes. Like that's one of the things, like I think you have to be 12-step based sometimes for certain insurance companies, and 12 steps aren't for everybody. I love AA, saved my life. But they're not for everybody. No, there's no one solution for the entire community. You know what I mean? Everyone's different. The Dalai Lama says it best. He goes, "There's 8 billion people on the planet, which is 8 billion different points of view and opinions. So everyone's different, you know."
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
does it work with you guys up there? So you said so it sounds like you're doing good by yourself because you don't get any funding from the government, you said.
Yeah. So the government up here is all based around harm reduction, which is
Okay.
fine. Harm reduction does save lives. But to me, and this is just my opinion, harm reduction is a bit of a band-aid, and it doesn't actually give people their life back. It kind of keeps them consumed on Suboxone, methadone, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm private pay, and I'm about a quarter of what some of these other treatment centers are. Eventually, I'd like to, be government funded, but I mean, the government pays $45 a day for recovery, and you're supposed to house, feed, educate, entertain, counsel these people for $45 a day. With my 4 or 5 beds, it wouldn't even cover my rent, right?
Yeah.
And we got major inflation up here with the food. So some of these places that are government funded, they got like 30 or 40 beds. They cram all these guys in there. They take their subsistence check and they go to maybe a meeting a day, and maybe they do a bit of group a day. The rest of the time, they're just sitting around idle, right? With my program, like from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, these guys are nonstop. Like they don't have time to think about anything. It's just the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And I've seen great success with that. So it's just about, kind of navigating the different loopholes. Mine is 12-step based. We are going to be possibly adding a harm reduction element at the end, for when people leave early or they quit or they get kicked out, and hoping to maybe get some funding that way, because even at this private pay, it's still a struggle. Like it's not like it's just an easy fix and these guys come and go and there's money in the bank and everything's hunky-dory. It's, we get a lot of help from volunteers, and so it's always a challenge. It keeps me on my toes, but whether it's the States or Canada or whatever, that's why this group Empower to Recover is so important, because we're getting as many people as we can together to bring the voice that says, hey, the government needs to step up and do something. There was $875 million that the federal government in Canada has misspent or is missing, that they can't say where it's accounted for. And nobody's asking the questions, where did that money go? Because we need that money. And with Empower to Recover, we're asking the question, what if we could stop addiction before it even starts? So let's go back to the youth and let's give them the tools before they get to where we are and have to go through the stuff that we had to go through. Let's give them the support, the mentorship, the big brotherhood, the tools, so that they don't have to fall into the trap to become addicted, right? Because those addictive personalities and habits start at a very young age. So we're asking that question.
So how do people find, because there might be people listening from, I know a lot of people actually listen from Canada. So if somebody wanted to find you, how do they go about doing that?
Okay, so if somebody wanted to find me, there's a few ways. There's Instagram at coastal_recovery community. There's my website, www.coastalrecoverycommunity.com. There is also therapythreads.ca is the clothing line for money that goes to support treatment. And then there is empower2recover.com. If anybody wants to get involved with that movement, it's a great way to get involved, recover loud, and create a voice for the ones who we've lost.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing really great things, and also sounds like you've got a mission and you're not joking around. I say about me with this, I have no intention of failing. Sounds like you're the same type of mentality.
Yeah, I mean, I failed more times than I can count, but I just get back up and keep going. And I learn from that failure. When one door closes, another one always opens. The hardest part for me is when I'm sitting in that hallway, when all the doors are closed and I'm sitting idle, waiting for the next one to open. That's when I really have to sit with my spirituality, trust my higher power, trust that the universe has my back. and just wait, right? Because I'm a go, go, go kind of guy. And when I'm just waiting for something to open, it's really hard, but that door always does open, and you just got to be waiting to look for it.
Awesome. So did you have anything else you want to add?
I mean, I think that's it. Just on the failure thing, failure breeds success. I know a lot of people are so scared to fail. They're scared when one thing fails. Just keep going. That's all I can say. Failure breeds success. If we didn't fail, we would never succeed. And if anyone's out there struggling, and need someone to reach out to and they don't know who, I'm always available. And if I'm not the right resource for you, I have a Rolodex of other resources that I can point you in the right direction. So no matter what you're going through, what stage of recovery, if you're sober curious, if you're relapsing, if you're looking for a loved one, just reach out, because there's tons of help out there.
Awesome. I want to thank you for coming on and doing this today. How do you feel?
I feel amazing, man. I really appreciate it. I'm really glad we connected, and I'm really looking forward to watch what you're doing in the future.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm like you. I'm just trying to help the community, because it keeps me sober also. Just like you said, keeps you busy, keeps you sober. I try to stay busy with this stuff.
Absolutely, 100%.
All right, my man, sit tight. For everybody watching and listening, if you like what you saw and heard, go below and give us a like. Also subscribe to see when we upload new videos. You can check us out on Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Tumblr. You can also check us out at www.addicts-anonymous.com. There you'll find plenty of free resources as well as free literature. That's all we have for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time.